Right now at 6, 10 state senators barred from re-election after the longest walkout in Oregon history.
I think most of our members, if you talk to them, would say they would do it again.
But will it stop the same lawmakers from potentially walking out again? Plus,
I think we're all breathing a sigh of relief that we're dodging another strike.
Two unions reached new deals with Oregon's largest school district. How the agreement came together after months of bargaining.
And grapes tainted by the 2020 wildfires left some winemakers with a bitter taste.
A mouthful of cigarette smoke or a day-old campfire.
An update on the tech now in development that could act like a force field against smoke. Good evening, everyone. We begin at 6 with reaction to those 10 Oregon state senators now barred from re-election. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Blair Best. The final decision came from Oregon Supreme Court today after the longest walkout in state history.
So let's get right to Evan Watson in the newsroom with details and fallout on that decision. Evan?
Well, Blair, David, the Oregon Supreme Court decided that voters' intent, their understanding of the text, matters. And with Measure 113, voters likely expected immediate consequences. 9 Republican senators and 1 independent racked up 10 unexcused absences during the walkouts this past summer, stalling any work in the Senate. Now, 4 of them won't be able to run for re-election later this year, including Senate Republican leader Tim Knopp. 2 other senators plan to retire this year, and the remaining 4 senators will be ineligible for re-election in 2026. Explaining its decision, the Supreme Court wrote, "We do not review the text in a void. We instead seek to understand how voters would have understood the text in the light of the other materials that accompanied it." Senator Tim Knopp said he disagrees with the ruling, but still thinks the walkout was worth it to force Democrats to negotiate.
We knew the day we walked out that the possibility is that we would pay a pretty high price for it, and we knew it would go past 10 days. And our members, I think, believe that it was worth it.
Knopp says he does not plan on appealing the ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court. With the 2024 session starting on Monday, Knopp said discussions between both parties have been positive, but Republicans would still consider walking out again if they feel it's necessary. The Secretary of State said the court's ruling upholds the intent of the voters, and she's grateful for the clarity. Republicans now will be forced to replace most of their Senate members over the next 3 years. We have more coming up on the story at 6:30. David?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot to talk about with this. Thanks so much, Evan.
Well, to your headlines now. 2 teens have been arrested after a weekend stabbing outside a Kelso McDonald's that left a father and his 15-year-old son with life-threatening injuries. It happened late Saturday night at the restaurant off I-5 at the Allen Street exit. Now, according to police, the father said he saw 19-year-old Cameron Kerr being violent toward a woman in the parking lot and confronted him. That's when Kerr and several others, including a 16-year-old armed with a knife, ganged up on the father and son and started a fight, allegedly stabbing them both. Kerr was arrested yesterday, and the 16-year-old was caught today.
In Eugene, a man is facing 4 bias crime charges after a string of anti-Semitic tagging incidents at a synagogue. Temple Beth Israel was tagged in August, September, and October of last year, and again last month. Police say these suspects' actions were deeply felt by the city's Jewish community.
In this particular case, with the timing and some of the things that are happening globally, our Jewish community is feeling particularly vulnerable.
Police say they arrested 34-year-old Adam Braun, and when they served a search warrant on his house yesterday, you saw what they found: Nazi and KKK paraphernalia.
Well, a company that created marketing campaigns for OxyContin will pay $350 million as part of a settlement rather than face lawsuits. And Oregon is getting some of the payout. Publicis Health worked with Purdue Pharma to increase sales of OxyContin and other opioids. Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum says just over $5 million will come to Oregon, and it'll go toward treatment and recovery resources, something that's desperately needed here. Oregon already has nearly $1 billion from legal settlements with other companies associated with this crisis.
And Portland police are asking for help tracking down a man who they say robbed 5 Portland dispensaries at gunpoint last year. This is 43-year-old Corey Jackson. The robberies began in April at a shop on Northwest Nikolai Street. Between then and September, Jackson allegedly hit dispensaries on Southeast Cesar Chavez, Northeast Sandy, Southeast 28th, and Johnson Creek Boulevard. Authorities add Jackson is also a suspect in numerous felony crimes in Washington, Arizona, and Nevada. Police say he uses wigs to alter his appearance and has a knuckle tattoo that says homesick. If you spot Jackson or know where he might be, you're asked to call Portland Police. Matt?
All right, thanks very much, David. What a day today to start the month of February. Portland made it up to 62 degrees. So did Scappoose. 60 in Hillsborough. That tied the record there. Really amazingly warm for this time of the year, especially considering the weather we had a couple weeks ago. 60s all the way up and down I-5 to get to Medford. 57 there, 57 Pendleton, and even 60 at Astoria. So pretty impressive. We see some pretty significant changes, though, in the month of February from the 1st to this year, the 29th, because this is a leap year. The average high today is 49. By the end of the month, it is 54. So pretty significant 5-degree gain on that. Sunset today, 5:16. By the end of the month, it's almost at 6 o'clock. We also see the sunrise happen about a half an hour earlier by the end of the month. So we get a lot of daylight, a lot of extra daylight happening this month. And then the rainfall drops down, the average rainfall below 5 inches for the first time since October. So all in all, the last full month of winter, we see some pretty significant changes towards longer days, drier days, and warmer days. Guys?
We won't talk about the groundhog, at least not yet. Thank you, Matt. All right, let's get to a couple other stories we were watching tonight, including 2 tentative deals for workers in Oregon's largest school district.
Thomas Schultz is here with an update. Thomas.
Well, Blair and David, the deals are for most Portland Public School staff outside of teachers and counselors. So we're talking about people like education assistants, custodians, and food service workers. And they say after months of bargaining, they finally have a deal members can approve.
We feel that it's an improvement over the last contract, but it definitely does not meet all of our needs.
For more than a year, Chris Walters, a food service worker at McDaniel High, has bargained for a better contract for custodians, food service workers, and others. A couple weeks ago, a deal was reached. A 15.5% wage hike for nutrition service workers over 3 years, and a 12% bump for custodians over the 3-year deal. And they're not the only ones with a new contract.
It makes me feel seen a little bit too in that regard, so I'm really happy about that.
Yasmin Correa is a paraeducator in Portland Public Schools. Her union, representing education assistants, librarian assistants, and others, agreed to a tentative agreement Monday with raises of 13.5% over 3 years. Still, Correa says longtime workers didn't get the wage hikes the union wanted. And
we're still not getting living wages.
Walter says even with the pay bumps, nutrition service assistants still start under $20 an hour, though he says the agreement is progress. And the deals come months after Portland teachers agreed to a new contract, ending a near month-long strike.
It was disruptive, nobody liked it, but it was a necessary thing to happen.
We asked PPS what they thought about the new deals. We never heard back, though workers say they're relieved. School will likely go on undisturbed.
I think we're all breathing a sigh of relief that we're dodging another strike.
And of course, they're not the only ones breathing a sigh of relief. Thousands of families are too. But remember, these deals still have to be approved by union members, then finalized by the district, though the unions are optimistic they can wrap all this up sometime in the next couple of weeks. Blair?
All right, Thomas, thank you. Well, let's talk about 82nd Avenue in East Portland, a notorious stretch for drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians, though PBOT has just released plans for a $100 million upgrade to make the streets safer.
Well, let's bring in Ashley Grams, who's live along 82nd near Southeast Foster. So, Ashley, walk us through some of these potential changes.
All right, David, Blair, well, PBOT is trying to make this stretch of 82nd safer. They're doing that by improving crosswalks, adding sidewalks, and they're building medians. But not everyone we talked to today agrees with that plan. Changes are coming to 82nd Avenue in Northeast and Southeast Portland.
We have heard loud and clear that people want to see change on the ground on 82nd Avenue. They want to see a safer street now.
The Portland Bureau of Transportation released new plans for sidewalks, crosswalks, center medians, and fresh pavement, stretching along 82nd Avenue from Fremont to Schuyler and Mill to Foster.
We've got $185 million federal, state, and city funding to make critical fixes in the coming years.
Take a look at this rendering. The image shows what 82nd and Foster could look like. Dylan Rivera says PBOT will spend $185 million to refurbish this crash-prone section of the road and make it much safer.
Prevent a lot of the helter-skelter left turn, right turn, driveways everywhere that has led to more than a dozen deaths in 10 years on 82nd Avenue and more than 120 serious injuries on this one corridor.
But not everyone is convinced medians are the right choice.
Getting into some businesses kind of makes it a lot more difficult, and I can imagine they're probably not too happy about that.
Sam Kotvitsky says he's already frustrated by the medians that were put in on Southeast Division. He's not eager for a repeat on 82nd.
I just imagine where I lived on Division when they did that. It was a hassle to try to get out of my neighborhood.
Chris Vo agrees, saying the medians on Division impacted a driver's ability to turn and the business he worked at.
I used to work for Taco Bell, and at the moment they build up the middle lane, we lose like almost half of the business.
But Rivera says medians aren't meant to stop people from accessing businesses, and PBOT is still looking for public input.
So right now we want to hear from them. Did we get it right? Are there some further refinements we need to make?
Despite the pushback, there's one thing everyone can agree on.
That's probably the only good thing.
New pavement and less potholes.
Having a pregnant wife and her complaining every time you hit a pothole, it'd be very nice not to have to swerve all over the place trying to avoid those.
Now, you can still give your input. Not everything here in this plan is set in stone, and you can do that by going to PBOT's website. You can also do that in person. They have a few meetings coming up. We'll have more information about that on our website, kgw.com. Blair, David.
Yeah, Ashley Grabs in Southeast Portland. Thank you, Ashley. Ed, straight ahead at 6. See you later. Wildfire smoke. We're talking wine, what local researchers have come up with when it comes to making grapes smoke-proof.
And the Seahawks go from the oldest head coach in the NFL to the youngest. Why they're all in on 36-year-old Mike McDonald.